Money is power, and I believe the top of the pyramid is pretty much those that control the banking systems, because that is the leverage. That is the leverage over everything. Money is power. Money is the power to bribe, to punish, to withhold, to reward, to manipulate. It's all with the money system. And, as everybody probably knows listening to this podcast, we've been away from an honest money system since at least 1971 when we got off the gold standard. But, this whole fiat currency thing, that the whole world, I was just listening to a great podcast yesterday. I mean, basically, almost the entire world is in a state of financial collapse. The debt is out of control everywhere. All the rug pull that it would have to take to bring this current one down, to say all your dollars are now worthless. Those Federal Reserve notes are no longer backed because they're Federal Reserve, and we're ending the Fed. We're ending that system. Well, what do you do in the meantime? You're probably going to be on a barter system in between systems, right? Um, the banks would probably all collapse because they're all based on that system. It's a banking system all tied together by the Fed. You'd need a whole new banking system, in my opinion, to manage this. So there would be a tremendous amount of turmoil until this whole thing was reset in a good way. I don't mean,
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
not that global reset, an honest reset. Would I mean, this pretty much came around right around the George Floyd time period, where the cities were burning and nobody's going to jail, firebombing restaurants, federal courthouse under attack, and these people just keep getting out. So we're not in we're not in a normal environment with the legal system. And I think because we're not in a normal environment, you're going to have extraordinary measures of some kind to deal with that reality. I mean, even Lincoln during the Civil War took some extreme actions that were technically probably not fully constitutional, because the country was in a very dangerous time, a time where it could fall, or just a collapse of their currency and of the whole banking system. You would need, self-contained in that country, the ability to make everything you truly need. Of course, all your farming, but your manufacturing, the manufacturing that you need to just support commerce and a normal way of life. And I see that is what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to bring manufacturing back. And at the same time, and don't get this wrong, I'm not saying I love everything Trump's doing, but he's a businessman. And I think with his team, he knows that the system's coming down and he's trying to prepare us for it. Because you have to get manufacturing back so that you're self-sufficient. You don't have to get everything
I
from
agree with
someone
that.
else. If your
100%.
currency is no good, then it's no good. You can't use it to buy stuff from overseas. You would have to trade goods for goods, and that would be like a barter. That'd be a very inefficient system until something was in place. And the globalists have said they want to bankrupt Russia and carve it up into five or six different territories. And right now they're saying in NATO that they want a 20 or 30-year war with Russia to eventually bankrupt them, so that they can accomplish that very goal. And I mean, no country who's surrounded by all that is going to take it lying down. They're going to do what they did. They have an amazing defense system, hypersonic missiles, the ability to outproduce all of NATO militarily, because they have to do it. I mean, it's a survival thing for them. And but yet we've been led to believe that they're this awful aggressor. I mean, I encourage people, okay, because my goal when I wrote the book is, look, we just got to forget everything we know and objectively look at the evidence and just quit being on one team or the other. I mean, I'm a patriot, obviously, but I don't take anything at face value without digging in and seeing it for myself. So NAFTA came about. You would not believe the investment in technology that went into these NAFTA countries, manufacturing technologies, because they were taking a long-term view. Labor's cheap. I'll invest in technology like crazy. We're in this for the long run. And they did. These countries got all kinds of tech. Cars are built in Mexico. in factories that are every bit as good or better than the ones that are here, and the same with all over the world. But it can be reversed. It'll be painful and it'll be slow and things will be expensive in the meantime. But more people will have jobs. More money will come in the form of tax revenue. Less money will go out for to pay for people to sit at home because they'll have real jobs. And it's a long-term thing that we desperately need to survive. It has to happen. In my opinion, it has to happen to save the country, even if the banking system wasn't ready to go under. But you combine that with the fact that it's on the razor's edge and it's going to come down at some point. We absolutely have to grow manufacturing and be ready to rebuild our own society without having to be so connected to the rest of the world for what we need. And I think that's what we have to do. We can't, because we've been going through this fight so long, we can't let ourselves get black-pilled. We have to say, I am going to do whatever I can do to move that ball an inch, a yard down the field. If I have to move it 2 inches and do everything I can to do that and let the next person take it the next 2 or 3, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that's the attitude we need. And I think I think there's a spiritual power behind that attitude, because I think if we will take that attitude, then my belief is that, we're trying to do good, trying to open eyes. God will reward that. He'll add his weight to it.
Beyond the Forbidden.
Welcome to Beyond Forbidden. Today on the show, I got Allan Paul Roberts. You can go to his website, which is globalcollapsebook.com. I've been trying to get him on the show for a little while, maybe for a couple months, on and back and forth. But I got him here right now. Welcome to the show, Allan. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Michael. Great to be with you. Looking forward to our conversation.
So you were telling me about, and I'll give the bio and everything in the description for everybody to check out. And there, you have other podcasts for people to check out more in detail about you. And we're going to talk a little bit about your beginnings also. But you're just telling me about whenever you first, I guess, you woke up to this reality and everything within it. You said you saw something about the plane, the Pentagon, or what was it, something else?
Yeah, it was, it was a couple things. I mean, in researching my book, the Pentagon hit was eye-opening, because the hole in the wall of the Pentagon was only about 30 feet wide instead of, about 140 feet wide, like it would have been if a plane hit it, a 757. But what woke me up on the 9/11 thing was shortly after 9/11. I don't remember if it was maybe a year later, half a year later. I'm not quite sure, but I remember I went into a cell phone store in a mall to get a new cell phone. And I wanted to get a cell phone where I could, I wanted to buy some extra batteries along with the phone, because in those days, the chargers weren't great. And, you want a few extra, batteries that are charged up and ready to go. And they're like, we don't do that anymore. And I said, what do you mean? Well, all the cell phones have non-removable batteries. And I said, well, why would you do that? And the guy just looked at me and said, sorry, that's all we can do. And I started thinking about that, like non-removable batteries, why? And then later, when I started learning about how we're tracked and everything, it kind of all connected together. Of course, if they want to track your location, they can't take a chance on you removing that battery. And, there's evidence in the book. It takes you to an in-depth article that proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that our phones track us even when they're turned off. There's still a residual signal going out. And even if we have our ad trackers turned off, the operating system, the Google or Apple operating system continues to track us in detail, where we were, how long we were there, where we went on our trip. Every detail of our journey is tracked.
Do you think this started back in the 90s with Echelon and other similar projects?
Yeah, I think it started right after 9/11. Well, in a big way. It might go back further than that, but I think 9/11 was the excuse to introduce the surveillance state. That's when it all went wild. The excuse, we have to intercept the communications from these potential terrorists coming in from outside the country, where we learned later they were pretty much intercepting all communication now, turning it on the U.S. citizens.
I'm trying to look for my binder. I have a binder somewhere. It's probably '09, I guess. I started printing off a bunch of articles. I gotta have it somewhere laying around. A bunch of articles because
Yeah.
I was like, when you first, like I told you right before I push record, I woke up, in '06 when I came back from basic training and had all that money to buy a laptop, went down the deep down the rabbit hole, But so I started getting paranoid, which that's not a good thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, one day they're going to take away the internet. So I need to start printing this crap off.
Yeah.
And
Good move.
I still feel like I've been meaning to do that. I still love going back looking at older research. I don't I I skim headlines today. Like every day I skim through headlines.
Sure.
I don't have the time to read. We're being bombarded. It's almost like
Oh, yeah.
this future shock we're in, or whatever kind of shock we're in, or this information shock we're in, I guess
Yeah.
you
Information
could say.
overload. Too much to drink it all in.
And so, but I love going back because people are very amnesic to the past. We forget because I'll come across them. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Sure.
And then, so I've been meaning to go back because I have so many bookmarks and things saved. I need to print them off. I don't know when, but one day they are going to attack the internet. They do this. If you study history, they do this. They kind of leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone with whatever it is. It could be internet censorship, whatever, any kind of tyranny it is. Leave it alone, leave it alone. And then boom. And then they could orchestrate something, manufacture something, or something just happens organically. But usually there is no coincidence when it comes to things like this. Not sometimes,
Hmm.
but we had this surge throughout history.
Yeah.
It's like this cyclical patterns. You know, and if you study that, you kind of see the patterns where we're going in the future. But that's why
Yeah.
I like going back and looking at this older material, this older research, and coming across things that people, oh, that's old material. Yeah, but yeah, you're saying it because I posted it on X, but you really forgot about it. I think we need to go back and look at a lot of this stuff and see where the patterns are, or where we fit into the world today.
Yeah, exactly. They call it the Overton window. Like, what's the standard? They keep moving the window. So what we think is normal changes, like privacy. What's a normal amount of privacy? There's a federal law. It's a federal crime to read someone's mail. Yet we're okay with these, systems reading our email. We know they read them because, you can search your mail and it's obviously been indexed because it'll bring the answer up within a second, a fraction of a second. So they're indexing it. The FBI wants to, demand your email records from Gmail or Microsoft or whatever, they can get it, and if they want to scoop up your phone, where you've been according to your phone tracking, like on J6, they can do that. And, as I've said in another podcast recently, I found out that Google actually gives you an identifier, like a group identifier that identifies your search behavior, and it puts you into groups like white nationalist or extremist or whatever, and then all they need to do is combine the group with your travel, with your email search, with your email and your online search. They can combine all these things and know so much about you. And so my point is the Overton window. A lot of people were like, if I didn't do anything wrong, I got nothing to worry about. Yeah, I'll bet those J6ers didn't think they did anything wrong either just by showing up that day. But look at them, some of them in jail for 4 years.
I can't stand hearing that if I didn't do anything wrong, I have nothing to worry about, or
Yeah.
let them spy on us or whatever. Because if you don't have nothing to hide, then you don't have anything to worry about. Like I wrote this down the other day. Let me see. Okay, you have to have privacy for basic liberty.
Yeah.
You have to. Why close your doors or lock your doors at night? Oh, if
Exactly.
you don't have nothing to worry about. Oh, no, no, no. You just said we don't have anything to worry about. So no, leave your blinds open, your windows open, your doors unlocked. Go ahead. Don't preach to me and virtue signal of how I need to live my life.
Oh,
You go ahead and
exactly.
do that, but don't push it down my throat.
Yeah, and it's on so many aspects of our lives, our privacy. We came out of we came out of the 2020 event, and every street corner had a camera on it all of a sudden. And not at least where I live, 5G towers sprung up everywhere that weren't there when we went into that before the lockdown. It was two different worlds, and it just boom, here it is. You go through a toll on a turnpike. Now they say, just keep going. If you don't have the the ID thing, no problem. We'll just bill you from your license plate. We'll send you a bill. So they're tracking your license plate. They know where you're going. I mean, it's in so many places, and now all this stuff they're freaking out about with Palantir and AI is just taking this to a whole new level of privacy invasion and lack thereof, and it just goes on and on. The Internet of Things, right? Everything needs to be connected so it can know everything about us. Even our bodies are supposed to be hooked up to these medical devices that they like to have. Even an Apple Watch that's keeping track of your heartbeat and when you're sleeping, and trying to keep track of you medically. We're just okay. A lot of people are just okay with that. I find it repulsive. I mean, I don't have anything to hide, but I just hate the concept. So I try to break from that wherever I can, but you can't really too much. I mean, we all have cell phones, they're on all the time, and how much can you really do?
You just mentioned Apple Watches, man, because I was letting you finish, and then you brought up Apple, because I was just about to say something here. But before
Okay.
I get on Apple Watch, it's like you're reading my mind here. So before I bring up Apple Watches, okay, it's going to kind of connect, right?
Okay.
So you've been doing this for a long time too. Studying the world, politics, conspiracies, etc. And I'm sure you see these trends and all that. But one trend that I see is that it's been going back for years now. Like, let's just say with Netflix or Amazon Prime videos, and just other little things like that have like a 1 through 10 system, like the top 10 movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you around May, June ish, you're going to see the most rented or the most watched. It's going to be in the top 10, usually Independence Day. It's getting close to July 4th. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be the most. And then when Gene Hackman died, was it Gene Hackman? Yeah, he died. Gene Hackman. He was in Arizona. They found his like a weird death. Him and his wife. I think it's Gene
Oh,
Hackman.
that's right. Yeah,
Gene
yeah.
Hackman, who did Hoosiers. What I think it was Hoosiers. Yeah, and yeah, and behind enemy lines. But I told my wife, watch his movies are going to be the top 10. You're going to start seeing them trend everywhere. Watch. She's like, how'd you know? Like a couple days later, they started trending. They're in the top 10. Like old movies, people are renting that aren't even available to watch for free on Amazon Prime. People are renting these old movies,
Wow.
and they're in the top 10 because I think it has a couple different, like people purchase top 10, I think, and it has just the regular Prime Videos top 10, I believe.
Okay.
And there you go. And I see this, it's like if I can see this, and I'd see it on a small part.
Sure.
They see this. They see our trends, our habits.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
The data collection is incredible now. Yeah, they're analyzing trends at a level we can't even imagine, I'm sure.
So now
These,
let's bring up the Apple Watches, like you said, right?
yeah.
If they
Mm-hmm.
can follow our habits, our trends, our spending, our attention spans, whatever social media, whatever we get heated, whatever we love. But okay, Apple Watches. Now they have a heart rate monitor to go with it.
Oh, yeah. Your reaction. Yeah, they're monitoring your
So
reaction.
they can
Oh my gosh.
orchestrate something, an
Yeah.
event, false flag, whatever, or it could be a natural event like a tornado, whatever. They can see our reactions.
Sure.
Oh, because if we create a response, they see that people's heart rates are elevated. I'm sure they have if we have Chat GPT and other stuff on the surface level, imagine what they have.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
can see what the average everything of heart rates, people that have these smart watches that's connected to the internet of all things, whatever, they can see, they know how to fit these things into their plans. Okay. They know how to orchestrate events better. And, it's just a better form of chess for them,
Yeah. It's a better feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But man, we live in this, there's so many rabbit holes we can go down. But first off, before we keep going down, so we're approaching 9/11.
Yeah.
What was your first reactions to that? when I know you weren't quite awake yet when that happened. But whenever it did happen, what was your first reactions? And what were
Yeah.
you doing that day?
Yeah, I mean, I was at work. I was with my boss and one other person at lunch. We were in a like a bar just ordering lunch, and of course all the TV screens that came on everywhere around, like 360. You were seeing the planes hitting the towers over and over, and then the second plane hitting the tower. It was it was shocking, dismaying. Almost surreal. You couldn't believe this was happening in the U.S. And then the initial reaction was a surge of patriotism, of course. Which anytime people are attacked, that usually tends to happen. And then of course, George Bush out there standing in the wreckage days later of the buildings that came down, with his bullhorn saying that they were going to hear from us soon, the people that did this. And I remember there were cars that people had flags, the kind of flags you can hook onto your windows, and you see people going down the street with two flags on their cars, and pickup trucks with giant flags in the back, and motorcycles. Everybody was a patriot.
My mother was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, people coming back to church like crazy for a while. It was such a con, though. It was such a con. I mean, they pulled all the right levers and pushed all the right buttons, to get us on board with this supposed attack from people outside our country who did this with no help from anyone on the inside, supposedly.
What So whenever you start going deep down the rabbit hole, what was that one staple with 9/11 that made you think, holy shit, like this is definitely an inside job or something. It was planned, orchestrated, or whatever. What made
Yeah.
which one was that? With Pentagon, Building 7?
Yeah,
Which one was that?
building 7 that went down like you were pushing a button, and it went so perfectly down with nothing hitting it. I mean, at least with the Twin Towers, you could say, oh, it was jet fuel that heated up so hot that it, supposedly melted, the steel structure of the building. That's the story I remember at the time.
Even
But
if
now
that
you can,
happened, though, how did the pancake theory? You know what I
yeah, no, yeah. But and then of course there's been all kinds of engineers who have denied that. They said it was a planned destruction, just like you would collapse a building when you're taking it down for construction purposes to build a new one. That all came out later. But building 7, nothing hit it, and yet it went straight down. I mean, to me, that was just so bizarre. It's obviously false, right? It's obviously a setup.
So I saw the other day where Trump, let me see if I can just pull it up on X here, where Trump, where Rudy Giuliani was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by
Right.
Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Man, I thought you're supposed to be attacking the deep state and all that. Like, yes, Giuliani was just a puppet. He didn't orchestrate 9/11, but he helped carry out the agenda. You know what I mean? Like, he could have stopped firefighters and first responders from going down to that toxic environment and say the air was safe to breathe, and you know having people come in, just ship all the material, what was it, to China, I believe, Asia, and without it being investigated thoroughly. And he had a helping role in that, and then here is
Yeah.
Trump, giving him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, I guess I'm not up on that. I mean, that's interesting. The question is, did he know or didn't he know? I mean, if he wasn't on the inside, then you would expect him to react how he reacted if he was on the inside. I mean, obviously people were on the inside. In the book I put the theory out that it has to be the highest levels of government and the military, who, three-letter spy agencies, the military, with cooperation of probably local people too. You don't set up a building with all those explosives to take it down without it being well coordinated in advance. There's no way there's no way it was just foreigners doing this, who flew these planes in, because obviously it wasn't the planes that really took it down. So it was a major coordinated plan. And I believe it was all about introducing, the surveillance technology that became the norm after that.
So back to you see here. So I interviewed Joseph Farrell in person a few last month. I think it was August. No, it was July. So I asked him this, and I'd like to get your take. So over the decades, the globalists and the global influencers seem to have. I interviewed him in person. I traveled to him, and I like to do in person interviews. Also, been doing that for a long time. Mm-hmm. So over the decades, the globalists and global influencers and the global elites seem to have mastered the craft of shaping minds and steering societies through a blend of psychological tactics, distraction, and sophisticated propaganda.
Sure.
They're backed by intricate networks of think tanks, entities like the Tavistock Institute, Chatham House, Stanford Research Institute, Rand Corporation, Council on Foreign Relations, World Economic Forum, Aspen Institute, Carnegie Endowment, and that's just to name a few of these think tanks. These groups operate like grand strategists, moving pieces across the global chessboard, orchestrating events from the shadows while we, the unwitting players, merely react. Their game thrives on chaos they themselves engineer. A deliberate fog of confusion and deception to keep us distracted and divided. Like you could take the left-right political paradigm, for instance.
Sure.
It's a manufactured trap, a sleight of hand to pit us against one another while the real machinations unfold unnoticed. If we could just break free from this emotional grip of fear, anger, and tribal loyalty, their entire rigged system would collapse like a house of cards overnight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you hit on something there where you talked about the emotion and pitting us against each other. The thing I've noticed, if you go back to what happened in 2020 and the reaction to that and everybody getting the thing in their arm, I won't mention it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Did you notice the level of fear that surrounded that whole thing? People were acting out of fear. People were suspicious of their neighbors. They were getting on people who weren't wearing, the mask and things like that. And they were panicked. People to different degrees were panicked. And the thing that I've noticed about the manipulation that you're talking about is they want us to be in a highly emotional state where we're not calm enough to just use our minds and think rationally. I mean, anytime we're operating out of fear, we're not thinking clearly. We make quick decisions, we make shortcut decisions.
It's easy to do.
Emotional. Yeah.
I get caught in that trap, man. And I try to step back and reflect, I try to.
But they try to put us in that. That's my point. They create a situation that creates fear or it creates anger, right? Anything that puts us on the emotional spectrum and starts to shut down our ability to think rationally. So, to your point, when they do things to pit us against each other, we're in that emotional state. We're not thinking clearly. The reactions that we're seeing to RFK Jr. right now on the internet and on X are just kind of frightening in a way. The way people are, saying "F you" and to RFK Jr. and their pictures of them getting two of them at the same time in their arm right now. In denial, not thinking clearly. Like, here's a guy, if you look at his whole history, really, he's been all about health and he's a sincere guy, right? He is trying to open people's eyes and they are just pushing back with everything in them because they're doing it from an emotional point of view. They're not thinking rationally at all. It's just emotion and my team versus your team. And, just the whole emotional aspect of facing the truth that you did something that may have harmed you. And he's trying to help you see that. And yet it's just too much to take. You're just reacting emotionally. So it's a big weapon to keep us on that plane. And so we have to be careful. We have to like think, is this a ploy to get me to think with my emotions instead of my mind or not? And when you feel that kind of rising up within you, what I do is I try to take a deep breath and walk away from it. Don't feed the beast, the emotional beast,
Don't let
because
your
it
heart
never takes you on a good ride.
take that Apple Watch off so the NSA doesn't see your heart rate,
There you go.
But it's so angering, you know, to see this infighting. I interviewed Dean Henderson a couple weeks ago. He believes that everything's orchestrated. The top of the pyramid is basically the crown, and that he believes that's where it all everything they hide. They're basically wolves in sheep clothing. And the major financiers and bankers, they all orchestrate over there, and we're following their blueprint. But he said something that what you already kind of knew this, but it's just the way he put it. He said they keep us all distracted, and I'm paraphrasing. They keep us all distracted and fighting with each other. They keep the middle class pointing down to the lower class, saying you're trying to take my rights and all that. They're keeping us fighting with the lower class instead of looking upward and seeing the upper class what they're doing to the rest of us. I'm paraphrasing. He said it much, much, much stronger and better.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
But with the like left right paradigm thing, like when we the drug cartels that got bombed, the boat last week, whenever it was, the Venezuelan, whatever, the drug smugglers. You can debate all day, was that justified or not? But the thing is, here's how I see it though, whether it's justified or not, if we had Biden under president, whatever, Sleepy Joe, whatever, if we had him as president, if he would have ordered that or been behind, then the Republicans and everybody else like, oh, that's tyranny. You're that's not presidential. You're a whatever. That's the wrong move. Where he's going next thing, he's going to declare martial law and all this other thing. But since it's us, or you have Trump and the Republicans saying it's us doing it, it's a good thing. I'm like, this constant back and forth, man. It gets,
picking sides.
It's draining.
It is. The interesting thing though is that Trump has managed to win over some pretty important people who were on the other side. If you look at Elon, if you look at RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, these are people who kind of crossed over because for the most part, he has stuck to the topics that we care about, the borders, national security, gasoline prices, things that people care about have been pretty much most of the things he's working on. And so I guess my point is there is hope to end that if we can approach it from talking about the things we share in common, the what's good for people in common who can get on regardless of which side they're on. So like crime, a lot of people are like, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, let's do what we can to end the crime. And maybe it is heavy-handed, but here's the problem I have is we're not living in normal times. I mean, the level of tyranny that these globalists are imposing on us in their effort to tear down the system, with their soft on crime DAs that are not prosecuting crime. I mean, we've never had that before. I mean, this pretty much came around right around the George Floyd time period, where the cities were burning and nobody's going to jail, firebombing restaurants, federal courthouse under attack, and these people just keep getting out. So we're not in a normal environment with the legal system. And I think because we're not in a normal environment, you're going to have extraordinary measures of some kind to deal with that reality. I mean, even Lincoln during the Civil War, took some extreme actions that were technically probably not fully constitutional, because the country was in a very dangerous time, a time where it could fall. And I think that's the kind of time we're in. We're walking the razor's edge right now. We're like on a tightrope. This country could fall very easily, and there's people who are working hard to tear it down. And so it is going to require some bold action. Hard to say what the right action is, but it can't be playing by all the old rules, because the enemy's not playing by the rules.
Criminals never do. They never do play by the rules.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one to attack, whatever it is, to fix or attack, whatever, politically attack, whatever, which one area would you go after and fix? And then I'll give you my response.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying one thing that's wrong with society?
Okay. I'll give you mine. Anything
Okay.
with the tyranny, then the prison without bar reality that we live in. I would go after the Fed. Like, who are we in debt to?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
who why do we, like, who are these people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They say we owe what? I don't even know the number. Is it 20, 30 trillion? I don't know. It's
They're
been
saying 37 trillion. Yeah, but it's way more.
What was it the day before 9/11? 2.3 trillion, or that they couldn't account for, or and it's
yeah, couldn't account for. Yeah, 21 trillion. Yeah.
It's like, who are we paying? Like, those are the ones that fund both sides of wars. They fund certain politicians, and they're behind the whole mess. I'm not saying everything would be better, but man, this world would be a lot would function a lot smoother if we could fix that. Like, find out, expose these people. Who are these people that we're in debt to? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would fix. Well,
that's a huge control point. In my book, that is so the book goes through 11 collapse points, 11 pillars of society that are under attack and in danger of falling. And the one you're talking about is pillar number 4, banking and finance. And that's the whole Fed system, the whole banking system. And they're actually trying to bring it down in their own way. They're not trying to end the Fed, but they're trying to end the banking system that we rely on to finance society, to finance our businesses and everything. But, if you look at the top of the pyramid, I've had this discussion before, who's really in control of the world? Money is power, and I believe the top of the pyramid is pretty much those that control the banking systems, because that is the leverage. That is the leverage over everything. Money is power. Money is the power to bribe, to punish, to withhold, to reward, to manipulate. It's all with the money system. And as everybody probably knows, listening to this podcast, we've been away from an honest money system since at least 1971, when we got off the gold standard. But this whole fiat currency thing, that the whole world, I was just listening to a great podcast yesterday. I mean, basically, almost the entire world is in a state of financial collapse. The debt is out of control everywhere. All of Europe, the United States, Japan, China. I mean, almost every major world power has an out of control debt situation all at the same time. And, the potential is for that whole thing to come down. But I would welcome it coming down if we could just replace it with something honest. But we have to acknowledge that if it comes down, the pain and turmoil is going to be immense, because there's going to be, let's say we could replace it with something honest, and just forget about a central bank digital currency and all the things they're trying to replace it with. But
read my mind again. You read my mind again.
If we could replace it with something honest, an honest currency, maybe gold backed or backed by commodities or something. If we could pull it off, the rug pull that it would have to take to bring this current one down, to say all your dollars are now worthless. Those Federal Reserve notes are no longer backed because they're Federal Reserve, and we're ending the Fed. We're ending that system. Well, what do you do in the meantime? You're probably going to be on a barter system in between systems, right? The banks would probably all collapse. because they're all based on that system. It's a banking system all tied together by the Fed. You'd need a whole new banking system, in my opinion, to manage this. So there would be a tremendous amount of turmoil until this whole thing was reset in a good way. I don't mean,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
not that global reset. An honest reset would be tremendously disruptive, but I think necessary. I mean, Russia actually went through this. The Soviet Union went through this years ago when the Soviet Union ended. I mean, their whole currency collapsed. They defaulted as a total default, and they started over. That's kind of what I see. We would default on everything, you know, and there would be some new way of starting over. I don't know. Does everybody get to keep what they have? You got a car loan for 15 grand, is all canceled, and somehow you get to hold on to it and go from there. I don't know, but it would seem to be mayhem to me, at least at some level.
And whenever you do try to change the monetary system and change, for, like you said, I guess reset the system in a good way, not the great
Yeah.
reset, but
Right.
you wind up with a bullet in your head like Lincoln and Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so what would be the best course of action? Like, do we worry about America first, and every country, they become their own individual sovereign state, and don't worry about other crap going on? I know you need trade, and I get all that, but that can be fixed. That's the reason why they pay these rich politicians to try to fix that, and think tanks. But um we need to worry about our own sovereignty, like worry about our own problems and fix that.
So
Like,
here's what I think has to happen for a country to survive, to do well in that situation. If there were just a collapse of their currency and of the whole banking system, you would need self-contained in that country the ability to make everything you truly need. Of course, all your farming, but your manufacturing, the manufacturing that you need to just support commerce and a normal way of life. And I see that is what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to bring manufacturing back, and at the same time, and don't get this wrong, I'm not saying I love everything Trump's doing, but he's a businessman, and I think with his team, he knows that the system's coming down, and he's trying to prepare us for it. Because you have to get manufacturing back so that you're self-sufficient. You don't have to get everything
I
from
agree with
someone
that,
else. If your
100%.
currency is no good, then it's no good. You can't use it to buy stuff from overseas. You would have to trade goods for goods, and that would be like a barter. That'd be a very inefficient system until something was in place. But the safest thing to do is pretty much to do what Russia did. We basically shut down their ability to do business with us. So what they do, they just started making everything themselves, and now they're practically self-sufficient in all kinds of ways. And now they're out producing us for defense and everything else. They have not lots of natural resources. Well, so does the United States, but we have all these environmental laws that have handcuffed us in using the resources that we have. We have tremendous natural resources. The other thing that would have to happen is your population would have to get trained on all the skills you need to have a manufacturing society, and that's also what he's doing with all these not fellowships, I forget, internships. It's an internship program that they're paying for. Like 1 million internships are on the schedule right now. I think 180,000 of them are already funded to start teaching the skills that you need, the basic skills, for a manufacturing society. So I think it's a race against the clock to get manufacturing back and to get the skills developed before it all comes down, because from different people I've listened to, you're talking about somewhere between 2028 and 2032, the House of Cards has to collapse. This out of control debt system, we got a situation where what the Fed's buying our debt, or the Treasury's buying, you know what I mean? People aren't buying our Treasury bills and Treasury notes at the rate they were. The facade is obvious. The same thing's happening in Europe. The same thing's happening in Japan. It's a sovereign debt crisis worldwide, and the whole thing is going to reset in a huge way. I think one way or the other, for better or for worse.
And to my debt, You mentioned something about buying up debt. Said why I like going back and researching older stuff is I remember back in 2008 or nine or whenever, the crash, whatever it was in Wall Street,
Oh yeah, yeah,
um,
the OA, yeah.
the Great Recession, whatever they called it. I remember China. I swear I can't. I've been meaning to go back and print off these articles, but I remember Ch- like China buying our debt, and in return we were giving them land.
Oh wow.
But but people
Mm-hmm.
forget these things, and we were giving them
Mm-hmm.
not just but other things, and they wonder why China owns a lot of our land and certain resources, here in the United States, is because I think it stems back from that. But back to Russia
Yeah.
being the boogeyman, I don't, I don't think they're. I'm not. I don't know if I want to live under Putin, but I don't think they're the boogeyman either,
No.
though. Putin just rebuilt that church that got destroyed by Stalin, I believe, during World War II.
Oh, is that
The
right? Yeah.
the like to the exact detail, like this 1,000-year-old church or however old it is. And that when I did that face to face interview with Joseph Earl, he believes, and I believe also that he's trying to bring back, of course, what you said, their own self sufficiency,
Right. Right.
but they're also trying to bring back morals, values,
Yeah.
the family system and all that. The
Well,
thing,
The West has been trying to turn him into this boogeyman and really misrepresenting him. And it's dangerous to bring that up because some people have such a visceral reaction to that statement because they have been so conditioned to believe Russia's the boogeyman.
mm-hmm,
I mean, they talk about Russia attacking Ukraine, but they never talk about that. NATO and the whole Western world has been moving. Arms into Ukraine since the fall of the Soviet Union, where we made a deal that Ukraine will never be part of NATO, and NATO will not move into Ukraine. And we've moved all this military equipment in for decade upon decade, year after year, coming right up to their border. It would be like if Russia went into Mexico or China went into Mexico and started putting all kinds of missile defense systems in Mexico and was moving them up to within 200 miles of the U.S. border, all along the southern border. That would be kind of a similar situation when they agreed not to do it. And if we were surrounded by other countries like Russia is, we're not. That it would be as if they put it in Canada too, and maybe in Cuba. Had all these. We're moving all this weaponry in, and we're just supposed to be okay with it. Well, that's what we've done to them. And the globalists have said they want to bankrupt Russia and carve it up into five or six different territories. And right now they're saying in NATO that they want a 20 or 30-year war with Russia to eventually bankrupt them, so that they can accomplish that very goal. And I mean, no country who's surrounded by all that is going to take it lying down. They're going to do what they did. They have an amazing defense system, hypersonic missiles, the ability to outproduce all of NATO militarily, because they have to do it. I mean, they are. It's a survival thing for them. And but yet we've been led to believe that they're this awful aggressor. I mean, I encourage people, okay, because my goal when I wrote the book is, look, we just got to forget everything we know and objectively look at the evidence and just quit being on one team or the other. I mean, I'm a patriot, obviously, but I don't take anything at face value without digging in and seeing it for myself. So toward that goal, I've read Putin's speeches, right? A few of them. And if you read them, you would say that is not a madman. That is a very level-headed person. He says things like, "Who would persecute Christians? Christians make the best possible citizens. They self-regulate their behavior. They don't cause crime. They don't cause problems. So who in the world would do that?" Another one, he says, "Do you want your kids to be hearing about having two mommies and two daddies and all this, trans stuff that's going on?" He said, we will not let that invade our culture. No, Tucker went to Russia. He said the cities are clean, they're crime free, the subways are clean, everything's orderly, people are patriotic. It's not the country that it's made out to be by the people in the West who are trying to make it a boogeyman because ultimately they want to take Russia. They want to take all its resources because the West is going bankrupt and they need Russia's trillions of dollars of natural resources to basically pay out their debt and basically have their one world order. Russia is standing in the way of that in the same way that in a similar way that Trump is standing in the way of it. It's why they're so vehemently against both of them is because they're in the way.
And we've always had this problem with overthrowing governments. We've had Henry Kissinger, Brzezinski, other players, that work alongside with politicians in DC, that help orchestrate these overthrow of governments. And we've been still with our own puppets, Iraq, Iran,
Sure.
Iran back in the 60s, 70s. Man, the list keeps, and like you said about splitting Russia apart, that's what we've done over the decades, meddle our own noses in other people's affairs and balkanize them, split them up,
Mm-hmm.
divide and control, divide and conquer. That's our problem, is like we have these people, oh man. And I feel like these same people that had these agendas, I feel like the good guys in one way or another, one shape or another, are being influenced because the ultimate thing is like with the banks earlier we're talking about, there's money involved.
Oh, sure.
Either with rebuilding that country, getting their resources when we take them over, whatever it is. And the people, this money laundering, money going underneath the table, you know.
Oh, the level of corruption everywhere is just so hard to take. You can see it with the senators and congressmen, and the corruption is just incredible. The things they won't come together to vote on. You know how they draw party lines regardless of what's best for the country, just ignoring it. And even on the Republican side, how many of them are rhinos, Republicans in name only, uh, going against Trump on some of the most basic things. It's like there's snakes everywhere. It's like running through a snake pit to try to get anything done. It's almost like to get anything done, you have to go big and bold and do something and then wait to get sued. And then, like he does, and then take it up to the next level of court. And if you don't win there, take it to the Supreme Court if you can. But I mean, it reminds me of like an oxen going through a field trying to plow the field and just hitting rock after rock after rock, and nobody's helping pull it. Everybody's just trying to throw rocks and branches and tree stumps in the way. That's what it feels like. I mean, every inch that this administration has gained for any kind of good has been an all-out fight, and you can see it everywhere. It's every day in the news. I mean, the level of resistance. Look at RFK before Congress, and what he just recently happened with him trying to put a normal standard of testing on these VAXs that he's that he's trying to bring some just a level of sanity. Let's have normal tests. Let's get the harmful elements out of there. The mercury, the aluminum, and you would think he was stealing their steak dinner off their plate right in front of them. The way they're just going nuts in these hearings. But that's what I mean. Any good that you have to do, you're up against an unbelievable onslaught trying to stop you from doing good. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and then we have DeSantis in Florida trying to make it, and it looks like it may pass where schools don't have to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And then people are having an uproar about that. Well, if you should have the choice to vaccinate your own kids, then if you do vaccinate them, then what do you have to worry about?
Right.
You know what I mean? So don't worry about everybody else. And then I saw something about Trump saying he don't know if that's a good idea or something like that. I'm like, dang gum. It's like
Yeah.
we can't win for nothing. And then I saw something else about Trump about it's like he does good, then you see these other things. It's possibly like possibly making illegal for transgenders to own firearms, you know, like, and I did some digging. I'm like, I don't think that's fake news. And I think the New York Times posted it, which, I don't trust none of them guys, but it's
Yeah,
like,
here's how I see him. Here's why I think he causes so many problems because he doesn't fit the right left mold. He really doesn't fit it. He's more like I would call him transactional. Like, what's the best solution without a right lens
from a business perspective, I
from a
guess.
business perspective? So if you look at, I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but it was Donald Trump Jr. Put out a tweet, or maybe it was on X, um, of all the mass shootings, of about 10 mass shootings over the years. And it turns out that every one of these was on some type of psychotropic drug related to their transgender transition. And so, you see these all kinds of drugs advertised if you watch the news in the evenings, may cause suicidal thoughts or thoughts of violence or,
Rectal
thoughts of,
bleeding.
yeah. So, I mean, I think the way he sees it, I'm guessing, I'm reading into it. It's like, okay, these trans shooters are violent way beyond their percentage of society. It's all out of proportion. So something is up with them. Until we figure it out, no guns for them because they are killing people at a rate that doesn't relate to their percentage of society in any way, shape, or form. So
But the
it's like,
thing
forget
is,
about, like, he's not even thinking about the Constitution. It's like, we got a
yeah,
problem. This is insane. Just stop it right now. They don't get guns. You know what I mean? Like, that simple.
that's the thing is like, when you go down that slippery slope, then where do you draw the line? And then before you
Yes,
know it,
it's dangerous.
they'll be knocking on your door trying to take your firearms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Especially under the whoever the next president or whoever, what I mean? Like
Exactly.
they'll
Yeah.
expand on those powers and
It's
try to add
dangerous.
more control tyranny on top of all the
It
control
only
tyranny
goes one way. Yeah, it
you know,
always goes in one direction. I agree. It is dangerous. All I'm saying is I don't think he thinks that way, but um, I know in several cases the people around him have gotten to him before he's actually followed through. In other words, he can change his mind if you give him enough information. I know Roger Stone claims that. He says, if you give him enough information, he always makes the right choice. The problem is you have people around him withholding information or not giving him the full story all the time. But, that's his take. But he's a long time Trump advisor, and that's what he claims.
another one I would like to get rid of is Peter Thiel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's a Bohemian Grover, I think Silicon Valley bigwig, whatever.
AI, yeah.
I think he hired Vance, I guess, years ago or something like that. And I read something, and man, I've got to print these articles off. And it was actually an older article. I may have it bookmarked somewhere, but where Peter Thiel and of course others in Bohemian Grove, they orchestrated something to, of course, it's all theory because how do you prove it without a shadow of a doubt? You know what I mean? It's hard to prove these things that are done behind closed doors,
Yeah.
unless you have a whistleblower that comes forward. But Peter Thiel and other people in Bohemian Grove, I think, I don't know, 15, however many years ago, been a while, they orchestrated something to take control of, because people were rising up, were asking questions, like never before after 9/11. So they had to orchestrate, like they had to take control of the situation. What better way to subvertly control the narrative and the situation than to create a truth movement, than to create a MAGA or whatever. Not saying Trump is part of that. I'm just saying to create this uprising amongst what happened in 2020, what about 9/11, about tyranny, Big Brother, the granny state, all of that. They orchestrate that And to think that we're on the good side of the, but behind the scenes, it was all orchestrated behind the scenes, by these think tanks and certain people like Peter Thiel and others to control the narrative. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that it's kind of scary to think that, that they have infiltrated this and they started this movement possibly,
Yeah. And there's a fine line between, we all have to deal with this, right? There's a fine line with being doubtful in a healthy way. But then there's this point where we can start to get so black-pilled that we think that these people have control over everything. You know what I mean? And it's all this massive chess game that we don't have a chance at. Here's, for right or wrong, here's what I look at. I look at who has gone through the most hell to try to promote their vision for America. Who has been shot at, jailed, debanked, deplatformed, left and right, and look at those people. And those are all people in the Trump orbit, right? Even the J6ers. Look at them. Who has gone through hell for trying to support a person who's trying to make America better? Got to keep in mind Trump's age, 79, right? He remembers the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s when America was a super manufacturing power. I mean, I'm old enough that I remember when America was a super manufacturing power, when companies like Texas Instruments made your tech, where we made our own computers here, when we're almost all the cars except the other brands were built right here in America, all of them. Dishwashers, microwaves, all were built in America. TV sets, and he I guess my point is he remembers that. So when he says make America great again, that's what he means. Getting manufacturing back, having a healthy, thriving, economy and society in general, having confidence in who you are. And I think he's gone through hell with that, because that vision is diametrically opposed to the globalist vision. You look at all the unilateral trade agreements he's trying to make. Even if you don't like the idea of tariffs, which I do, because they've been tariffing us forever, and that's the only way you have a manufacturing society, is if you have tariffs, reasonable ones though. But you look at all this, and it all is diametrically opposed to what the globalist wants. He wants strong individual countries, individual relationships, pulling us out of the World Health Organization, trying to, downplay the UN, talking about getting us out of NATO. All of this is decentralizing. It's pulling America back to what it was at one point when it was, quote, great, right? So
I'm old enough to remember when we used to have like 10 different types of phone companies,
Yeah.
Or more,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Where did all this change? Like, well, not the centralization, I guess.
NAFTA was
you're reading my mind.
You're
reading my mind. I was just about to say, did it happen under Bill Clinton under NAFTA? Like, was that like
NAFTA
the
was
tipping
the
point?
linchpin. I saw it myself.
It was under Clinton, right?
Let me think.
Or I know he helped push
that
it
was under Clinton. Yep. I don't know if anything. I don't know the history of how it developed before that, because usually these things are on a 10 or 20-year pattern before they finally bloom, But I saw it myself. So I worked for a manufacturing firm as NAFTA came into being, and I went to seminars that were about outsourcing, because everybody was getting ready to do it because of NAFTA. And at some of these seminars, you could almost feel the fear in the room. And the fear was, my competitor is going to learn how to outsource before me. I'm going to go out of business because his costs will be lower than my costs. I got to run like hell to open a plant somewhere, or get with someone who has a foreign plant, because I'm going to go under if I don't figure this out. And I saw American industry just collapsing and going down to Mexico and Central America. And then it was multiplied many times over when China came in, and you know, the whole West, you know, China became the manufacturing hub for the world pretty much, and it went to a whole new level. And we used to have cities like Pittsburgh, you know, the Steel City, where you had steel mills all over the place. You know, now I think there's maybe one steel mill there, but you know, these hubs of manufacturing, they all went away. And it can be reversed. It just like it went away, it can be reversed. Because for example, when NAFTA came about, you would not believe the investment in technology that went into these NAFTA countries, manufacturing technologies, because they were taking a long-term view. Labor's cheap. I'll invest in technology like crazy. We're in this for the long run. And they did. These countries got all kinds of tech. You know, cars are built in Mexico in factories that are every bit as good or better than the ones that are here, you know, and the same with all over the world. But it can be reversed. It'll be painful and it'll be slow and things will be expensive in the meantime. But more people will have jobs. More money will come in the form of tax revenue. Less money will go out to pay for people to sit at home because they'll have real jobs. And it's a long-term thing that we desperately need to survive. It has to happen. In my opinion, it has to happen to save the country, even if the banking system wasn't ready to go under. But you combine that with the fact that it's on the razor's edge and it's going to come down at some point. We absolutely have to grow manufacturing and be ready to rebuild our own society without having to be so connected to the rest of the world for what we need.
And then you have leftists and even people on the right, but it's a vast amount of people that on the left side that they like their cheap things. We all like our cheap things, sure. You know, but then you still have the left. I talked to a bunch of people and it seems like it's a bunch of people on the left that, you know, will say my dishwasher, my dryer, my washing machine, they don't last. Nothing lasts. It's because it's cheaply made. That's why it's cheap.
Yeah, it's cheaply made and it's pre-planned obsolescence. They figured it out. They figured the cycle out.
But yet I'm against a lot of shit that Trump does. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things I'm for. I'm for bringing back jobs here, man. Yeah.
Well, the last administration was the first time wages went up for like the average working person under his last administration. People were actually, their purchasing power went up for the first time in decades because he was starting to bring some stuff back, you know. So we got to do that on steroids, and it'll happen. Wages will go up. Yeah, things will be more expensive, but you know, you won't have so many people sitting around in cities all drugged up, right? Because they'll have jobs.
Well, that's what happens when a lot of these jobs went overseas. These cities got poor, spiritual and moral rot, like cockroaches fled those cities or just consumed those cities. And then you have things like fentanyl, drugs, killings. You had this, it's definitely a spiritual warfare, you know.
Oh, it is. It is. You got to bring the jobs back and you got to end the crime. And you got to end the drugs.
But then, like, I'm the first one. I will criticize Trump in a heartbeat if I see something I don't like. But you have these leftists that will say something about things are going to be so expensive, you know, we're not going to be able to afford anything, blah, 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 you know, but you're for child labor in other countries that's building your cheap crap. You know, you know what I mean? And you wonder why things don't last, you know. But if we have moral, or not more that too, but if we have the money here, I don't think people see that will bring more wealth in the long run. It may not happen overnight, but people will be getting more in their pocketbook.
Yeah, well, here's the analogy, and I know that Trump understands this, all right, because this is a huge secondary benefit of bringing manufacturing back. Okay, so let's just say you wanted in your family, you wanted to pay, you needed a haircut and you're going to go spend, I don't know, $25 to get your haircut. Let's just say, just to pick a number. You're going to go pay someone else to do that. Now, what if you could pay your wife to do that? That $25 stays within your family. You can still use it for groceries. It really just went from one hand to the other. Okay. America is like a super big family. When we're all paying each other and buying stuff from each other, the money's getting passed around in our family. When we take it and give it to another country, it's like a sieve, and you don't get that benefit of that money keep circulating and circulating. That's called the velocity of money, they call it in economics. And you just cut off that when it's going outside of the country.
So the money stays here, these cities that are rotting spiritually, morally, physically,
yeah,
like fentanyl, can start rebuild and have better solutions, better monetary, or they can use the money that they have in their pockets to maybe fix the problem.
Yeah, and they'll have way more money in their pockets because we keep paying each other to do things instead of paying someone from another country for something we need. Yeah, so it's a virtuous cycle. It just keeps getting better and better. More people have jobs, wages go up. We're just building more and more, and yeah, and we saw this under Clinton. He unfairly gets credit for having a balanced budget. It was Newt Gingrich and the Republicans that were the real reason that happened, and they forced Clinton to go along with it. It wasn't his idea, but one of the things they did under that Congress, 1994, was they significantly reduced the amount of time that you could get benefits if you were out of work. I mean, like maybe cut it in half, something big, right? And so they took away that crutch. And what happened was, the employment level went way up. Way more people were employed, and tons of people started their own businesses. If they couldn't find a job, they start their own business because the handout wasn't there. The handout's gotten worse and worse. I mean, under Obama, they eliminated the stipulation that you had to be looking for work. And now we have foreigners coming in under Biden that we're putting up in hotels and telling them they can't even get a job now because they're not allowed to, because they're not citizens. And so we're putting them up in hotels and paying everything and just draining the bank. You know what I mean? Just increasing national debt, giving them everything, and then rubbing it in the face of the people who were poor in this country and really could use a hand. These people are coming in and we're treating them like kings and queens, and then not prosecuting the crime. I mean, it's outrageous, and that's what they want. Like Klaus Schwab, we want to create an angrier world. Well, congratulations, they were really doing that. So we got to undo it.
So what does it say to a country to where, because it's the system, it's all screwed up. There's so many different variables at play, and kind of go back to what you were saying is, I mentioned this a few other times on the podcast, but what does it say to people like, I use my wife's parents for an example. They did things the right way. They went to college, they got jobs. My father-in-law, he went to college. He went into law enforcement. Mother-in-law went to college, graduated, went to kind of law firm, like something like that,
legal assistant or something
like that. But she got a degree in something though. Mm-hmm. They did everything the right way, the good old fashioned way. How they say, go to college, and I don't believe you need to go to college, but it works especially for certain stuff. You need it. You definitely need it, for doctors and things like that. Mm-hmm. But they did things the good old fashioned way, and pay their taxes and had jobs and never broke laws and did things right. Mm-hmm. So my father-in-law, a couple of years ago, he draws a pension from a little to nothing from, I guess, I don't know if it's the city or the parish or whatever, for him retired cop. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of years ago, he went blind. Mm. He's technically legally blind. And he says the best way to describe it, it looks like I think he got it because his sugar was out of control or something like
Oh,
that.
geez.
He had like a stroke in the eye or something like that because his
Okay.
sugar was out of control. He said, look, it's like looking through a screen door times like five, like looking through five screen doors. He can
I
kind of
gotcha.
see, but
Mm-hmm.
he's
Mm-hmm.
he can't drive. He's legally blind.
Yeah.
So he can't get oh man, I just had a brain fart. He can't get disability.
Disability. Okay.
It's because he's
He
drawing
can't
a
get it? Why not?
no. I
Like,
don't know, man. It's because
uh,
oh man, I could say some things that would not be politically correct. Uh
yeah, and yet there's people getting disability who aren't disabled who are
and
abusing it.
did not do the right thing. That sit at
Yeah.
home with
Yeah.
10 kids that live off the government and get everything under the sun and did do
Mm-hmm.
things the right way to help build this country. Everybody helps in one way or another through job, they
Yeah.
held their jobs, they worked, pay their taxes, blah blah blah, and they're struggling. They
Yeah.
are struggling. They
Yeah.
are poor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good old American dream, baby.
And
The
yeah.
ones that actually did things the right way struggle, and the ones that are lazy pieces of shit that don't do things the right way, they get to leave grocery stores with two or three buggies. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Should I
and
be
it's good.
pissed off? I should say I'd be pissed off.
It's getting worse. That feeling's worse when you add the immigration on top of it and all the goodies they're getting. Now, thank God that has been, we're pushing back on that. But like in Europe, I've done a couple podcasts recently. They're talking about in the UK and Ireland, in Germany. These people, they're rubbing their noses in it. The government is, arresting people if you fly a UK flag, they will arrest you because you're intimidating the migrants, right? Um, Arresting people outside of an abortion clinic within, say, 100 yards of an abortion clinic who are silently praying, and they're asking them, what are you praying about? I saw a video with the cop asking the guy, like, why are you asking me what I'm praying about? He knew what the cop was after. They want to know if you're praying for the abortion clinic or for people going in. That's not allowed. It's not even allowed in your home if it's within a certain circumference of that abortion. I mean, this stuff is off the rails. I have a friend from Germany who he's raised German, in his 60s, has a small business. He said, I couldn't take it anymore. It is off the rails crazy here.
We're at
Uh,
Germany.
in Germany, like the laws and what you get arrested for and the lack of free speech and the migrants coming in and causing chaos. I mean, this is like a straight laced German guy. I mean, he fits the mold. You know what I mean? And again, did everything right, plays by the rules. He moved his business to Austria, which is a German speaking country, but things are not crazy there yet. He said it was worth it at my age, in my 60s, to like pull up, move the whole business, move everything to Austria to try to get some semblance of a normal life back again. So this is happening all over Europe, is my point. This situation you're describing, but in their case, it's being multiplied by the fact that they've got all these migrants who are getting all the goodies. And it's not that just that they're getting the goodies, the whole legal system is against the common person. People are getting thrown in jail for sticking up for their rights. So they have it worse than us. And I really feel for them. But we were going down that path. Remember with Biden, that speech he gave that, MAGA's the danger to the country, with the red lights on the wall behind him, kind of like that Hitlerian speech
Yeah.
at night, with the Marines behind him, the military behind him. I mean, he was trying to lay the groundwork for mass arrests of people on the right. I believe that. I think they were laying the groundwork. It's like a global plan. They're pretty much all running the same playbook in Europe, Australia, Canada, and they were trying to run it here too.
It's just sad, man, just to watch my in-laws. They're struggling to survive, to live.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just and
yeah.
then
I mean, with all the money we're blowing, Social Security could be bigger. It could be more generous. It could be more honest. You know what I mean? The inflation, the things they don't count in the core CPI index, like food and utilities, I think are not in that. You know what I mean? Things that you need to survive. That index could be more honest if we weren't blowing money all over the world and blowing it on, the immigrants who don't need it and shouldn't be here and shouldn't have it. I mean, the what's the word? The injustice is really what you're talking about. The injustice of their situation where they played by the rules, and if anybody needs some help from the government, it would be him. But he can't get it because the rules are all screwed up and we're blowing money on things we shouldn't be blowing it on.
Yeah, so it's basically saying, let everybody know that, don't do things the right way. Keep being a rod of this country, and you get a handout.
Yeah,
You know,
I think that's ending. Hopefully, it's ending. We'll see. I mean, it has to go way beyond just this administration. It's got to stretch 2 or 3 administrations into the future. But if they can keep the trend going, then I think we could eventually return to some normalcy.
so I wrote this. I think I brought this up a couple weeks ago. Kind of pivot just a little bit. We'll end the
Mm-hmm.
discussion here in just a moment. But you mentioned global reset earlier. You're talking about the monetary reset, not a global reset. So it made me think of this, what I was wanting to bring up, with a global, not like we need a monetary reset. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Not the CBDC or nothing like that, but with the global reset, or New World Order, basically, whatever you want to call it, is basically the same method that the military uses to build the perfect soldier. I was there during
Mm-hmm.
basic training. You break the soldier down physically and psychologically by causing so much trauma through carefully orchestrated chaos. And once you feel like you have caused enough fear and psychological trauma, you basically have a clean slate to build up the soldier with a new ideological system that keeps the soldier in lockstep to where he becomes collectively conditioned to be a part of the hive mind.
Oof.
So I get in these zones when I lay in bed, when I'm taking notes. Sometimes I get in good zones. Sometimes it's like I can't come up with anything. But do you think that we are just, I guess, to be on the pessimist side, do you think that we are getting burnt out, like physically, mentally, and spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
to where we see good things happening, but at the same time, it's like the mud, it's like to your waist. You're walking through it, through the mush, and it's like it won't end. It's like we're just, do you
Like
think that,
hopelessness. Yeah.
yes, do you think that we're just getting burnt out, and in a way that helps the globalist ideas and ideologies, agendas, and everything like that? Because if they're burnt out, man, they can just keep moving forward with their agendas.
I think we have to really be on guard for that. And I think it's a natural tendency. It's almost like if you think about it, like, say, a 26-mile race, right? A marathon. The worst part of that race is the last mile. And the
Yeah.
worst part of that last mile is the last 500 yards. And the worst part of the last 500 is the last 100. We've been running this race where we've been like weighed down with all this bad news and all the awful things that are going on. And it's easy to lose hope. It's, I think the globalists want us to feel like it's hopeless. I mean, that's a spiritual strategy. I mean, I believe in God, and I believe there's a Satan and evil in the world too. And just within people that commit suicide, there's this place that they get into where they lose hope and they start believing that there's nothing that can be done, that they're beyond help, and you go down that path. Well, I think it happens on a bigger level with governments and societies too. Within movements or groups of people, we can be subjected to that. And in the course of writing the book, I realized this later, that my attitude flipped, because coming into the place where I was writing that book, I think it's fair to say that I was starting to lose hope. I really was starting to lose hope that this country could turn around. Right. And then in writing this book, which the idea for it came actually like in a revelation where I woke up one morning at 4 a.m. and I was like instantly aware of these 11 collapse points. And long story short, I basically asked the Lord, "Are you showing me this for a reason? I mean, do you want me to write a book or what? Why are you showing me this? And if you want me to write a book, what's the title?" And the title was just instantly there, just like those 11 pillars of society that were being worked on to take this country down were there instantly. And because that was so intense, I felt like, okay, I'm meant to write a book on this. But what I was trying to say is, in the process of doing that, I flipped from being on that almost black pilled feeling about America to feeling optimistic. And I'm thinking, what changed? I mean, I just uncovered all kinds of information about how they're taking it down. I didn't really uncover good news. I just uncovered the facts, but somehow in that, I guess in the process of writing it, I I realized that now I'm on the offense instead of on the defense. Instead of like bracing for impact, which was kind of what my position was before this, I'm on the offense trying to help spread the truth, open people's eyes of what's happening. Because if we can get enough people aware, then they will push back. And that's an offensive position spiritually and socially. And I think that's what we have to do. We can't, because we've been going through this fight so long, we can't let ourselves get black pilled. We have to say, I am going to do whatever I can do to move that ball an inch, a yard down the field. If I have to move it 2 inches and do everything I can to do that, and let the next person take it the next 2 or 3, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that's the attitude we need. And I think it's actually, I think there's a spiritual power behind that attitude, because I think if we will take that attitude, then my belief is that, we're trying to do good, trying to open eyes. God will reward that. He'll add his weight to it. And I think that is needed so much. People need to get on the right side, do their little part to move it forward, share information, help other people. Don't hold back when you're asked something just because you're worried it's going to be politically wrong or cause trouble. Speak the truth with respect, with love, but speak it and move that ball down the field. I think this country is at a tipping point. I mean, if you look at what happened
I call it our trial by fire moment in history.
Yes, if you look at what happened just with the woke movement and how much pushback there has been against that. What did it start with? It started with Trump announcing that it was over. It started with Trump attacking it within federal government, making fun of it, mocking it, and it started to catch on. And you see football players starting to do the dance and everything. It's like, this guy isn't crazy as we thought. They're like, actually, and all of a sudden it starts going down. Even in some schools, they start abandoning the policies. Big box stores start abandoning the policies. People were calling them out with truth, and they're abandoning. But one comedian said he's actually given us permission to be funny again, because like they're saying stuff again that they couldn't say before, because it just was, you had to be woke. You couldn't make fun of their sacred cows. We can turn this around. I believe that with all my heart, but it takes people making a decision to be courageous and do their part to spread the information. And, my hope is that we'll get cleaner elections eventually. But along the way, if we get enough people awakened to what's going on, these elections will be too big to rig, and people will actually get the people they want voted in. You know what I mean? It'll be honest enough. But that combined with cleaning up the elections, I think that's what we need. I think this country is right of center, but the people that scream the loudest are left of center. And look at how their kingdom is coming down. Look at the late night comedians who are losing their jobs. I mean, look at even The View. I don't know if they're canceled or not, but they were off the air for a month or something. People are pushing back. It's like they've had enough. It's like the scales have been removed and they're starting to wake up. So we need to accelerate that awakening. And I think it's here. I think this really is the great awakening. We can't lose heart now. We're so close to turning it around, and we just have to stay with it.
Well, Alan Paul Roberts, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's a treat, honor, and privilege. Um, I'll give the links to everything, your books, your information, your websites, and description for everybody to check out. Thank you for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it.
You got it. Yeah. If I could just say it, go to globalcollapsebook.com and click the read link in the nav. You can read a chapter for free. And you can also get signed copies for the same price as an Amazon unsigned price. So hope you check it out. globalcollapsebook.com.